I'm a don't quit it till I get the job done club member. May never be president, but when I lay down my head at night, I take pride in what I do.
Good morning, everybody, and welcome to an episode 6 of the Leadership Insight podcast, brought to you by Evans Leadership Insight Group. Today, my special guest is a good friend of mine, Tom Davis. Tom is with Atlas Daveco. You're in gas and oil, correct?
Yes, sir.
All right. Well, we're going to start out. Thank you for being here, Tom. And just, I guess, as much as you want to tell us about you and your company, and we'll get started with that.
Okay. So I've been oil and gas for 20 plus years. We started the business April the 28th of 2017. We spun it off it was formerly Atlas Energy Services. Spun it off about a year ago now. I'm into Atlas Davco, and we still have service company operations up in the Northeast, and then in Texas we're currently trying to stand up heavy haul transportation and crane business down here,
Awesome.
Supporting oil and gas and construction.
All right. 20 years in oil and gas. Oh, we're having some technical difficulties, but we'll get there in a second, guys. While he's putting that back on, and
I think it's going to stay. Maybe.
There we go.
Let's try it.
So 20 years in oil and gas. I'm sure you've got a lot of good stories and you've seen a lot. So let's talk about where you started in oil and gas, and so just as everybody that's watched for a while knows, we kind of focus on leadership, both. And, good leaders, bad leaders, what has developed us as a leader, some influences. We kind of tout ourselves as a company that believes in blue collar leadership. We think that, leadership is, a skill and a trait. It is not a position or title on the wall.
Agree.
So we like to hear kind of how you got started, the early years, and we'll talk about some lessons learned as I'll kind of break in. I'm going to let you talk a lot, but I'll ask you some questions and we'll have some discussions on leadership around that as you talk. So how'd you get started in oil and gas? What was your first?
Very first job, I was only like 14. So I guess I don't really count those years, but a friend of mine had a small little E&P company. Myself and his son used to get to go weed eat all of his well locations, paint well heads, clean tanks, all that kind of stuff. Fast forward, graduated high school at 17, and my dad at the time was working for Ashland Oil and Gas. I'm third generation oil and gas. My grandpa retired from Hope Gas, and then Dad was at Ashland for years.
So where I grew up in Canton, Ohio.
Mm-hmm.
Just my dad worked at Timken roller bearings, and on his way to the Gambranus factory where he worked a lot of my life, there was a Ashland oil refinery, and you could see the flame, you could see the burn off, and you can see that from the house. So that's kind of cool that there's that little connection there.
Yeah. Dad was, he was just a well tender for him. He did that for several years. And, I thought I was going to get lucky and get a nice E&P cushy job out of the gate. And, Dad got me started on a workover rig. One of his buddies had a position opening. So started out tripping pipe, and, did a lot of stripping jobs, got a lot covered in grease and, all the fun stuff. Get to puke your first day of work cause you're getting work so hard. And, so pretty interesting. So then, fast forward, I was 19, and a gentleman by the name of Bill Pratt, who's no longer with us. He really gave us a shot of a lifetime. A friend of mine and I, technically you're supposed to be, 21 to work with explosives and do wireline work and perforating gas wells. He gave us a shot at 19. We had to hide when the ATF came to town, So he really kickstarted our career. He took a gamble on two young kids, and so did wireline for, I don't know, about 5-6 years, I guess, something like that. And then progressed on up from there. Ended up going into work for a company called Blue Dot Completions, based out of Bridgeport, West Virginia. At one time, I think I was probably, nobody keeps record of this, but I'd say I was probably the youngest tool hand in the Northeast. Andy had hired me as a slick line operator. And then on my days off, at that time in my life, I was, couldn't afford college and I was eager to learn and wanted to grow my career as fast as I could. So I was volunteering on days off to go with, whether it be the fishing hands, the tool hands, whatever the case may be. then that kind of led into, well, you've been training with somebody for so long. Can we send you out here to cover this Packer job? Somebody called off sick or whatever the case may be. So started doing that. And, I mean, I know I'm skipping through a lot of stuff
No,
here,
but I want to stop right there. I want to, because I think there's a couple of key things to talk about there. So one, when you started out, I guess in the vernacular, we've all caught on to, landman. So you started out kind of as the worm, right? And you had to, you thought, I'm going to get a cushy job. I've been around this. My dad's been doing this for, for years. Everybody knows me. You had to earn those guys' respect.
100%.
And it wasn't just something you could, and that's as a leader, you can't just come in and say, I've done this, that, or the other thing, or I've been to this, or I've been to that. You have to, you really have to earn your hands respect. You have to whether it's your fellow leaders, or your employees, you have to earn their respect. You have to show them what you can do. It's not a title. It's not, well, I'm now the CEO or I'm now the president or whatever. I'm now a supervisor. I have the skills. I have the ability. And then I think another thing that you just were talking about that's really important to dive into is, this continual learning, this continual quest for self improvement, because, and I think it's changing some in society. I know, like when I grew up, um, we were changing, our society was changing from a very blue collar. I grew up in the Rust Belt in a steel mill town. And, most of the guys my dad's age, they served in the army, most of them in Vietnam. And then they came back home, and got a job at in the steel industry, or
100%.
automotive industry. And so college wasn't a have to, and then when I was in high school and school, it was, if you're going to be something in life, you have to go to college. It wasn't
Yes.
it wasn't even a thought. You either went to the military because you either were too poor or not bright enough. And,
Yep.
and I'm a military veteran. So what I'm saying is that was what the outlook, for people were, is you didn't have the academic skills to go to college, or your family didn't have the money to put you to college. So you would join the military or do something else. But, there was, there weren't a lot of guys that did apprenticeships. There's not a lot of guys, they kind of either went one of those two routes. But you're saying, you wanted to learn, you didn't let, not having the money, or not wanting to take loans out, for that matter, to, not wanting to go into debt to go to college, that probably, wasn't going to really do anything that was going to help you advance in oil and gas at 18, 19, 20.
Yeah.
So you were like, hey, but I can go out and volunteer. I can go find the guys that are, the top tool handler, or the top, line guy, or whatever those things may be. And I can go learn from them, again, develop that trust, develop that reputation of being a subject matter expert, or being a good hand at whatever it was, to then move you into those positions. Hey, man,
Yeah.
somebody's sick. Hey, Tom, can you come out and do that? And you're like, yeah, cause you knew, one, you were going to get more experience. And two, that's how you move up in especially in a, very blue collar, very hands-on world, is, you volunteer and you go out there and you get dirty and you prove you can do it. And then the next thing you know,
Yeah.
they're calling you, and you're in that job.
It's kind of like the old Thomas Edison quote, opportunity is often missed because it's dressed in overalls and looks like work.
Yeah.
That, and that's,
or Thomas Jefferson,
Or-
the harder I work, the luckier I get.
yeah,
But,
exactly.
those are both great quotes, and they're very true, and so now I know, like I said, I know you skipped around there. So when did you transition from, and I'm going to say that you probably never fully, or maybe haven't fully transitioned, but when did you transition from, more of the blue collar, more of the hands-on, out in the field work, to finally getting that office job that you wanted at 17?
Yeah, so it took several years. Like say, when I was at Blue Dot, if you were hungry, he would give you whatever you wanted. Sometimes I think I asked for a little too much. He gave you all the responsibility you could want and then some. He was really good at helping you grow. So whatever age I was at that point, he first he put me managing a slick line, or I'm sorry, a well testing crew for Columbia, and we had these little small little trailer units we used to go out and just test their storage field wells and things with. So that was my first time leading a crew, and yeah, mediocrity I'll call myself at that point, right? Um, I went on to a company called Oil States, worked for them for several years. There, I was a field service supervisor. That's what I got hired on as. Uh, didn't really supervise anybody except for my crane operator that I had with me all the time. That was pretty much my only responsibility. Um, Post that, went to work for a small company. They went out of business shortly after, and then another company approached me to take over their district in West Virginia. Took over that district, and we more than 10x their growth within the first year. Now, granted, that wasn't all me. That was a lot of market conditions and things of that nature factored into that. But that was my first office job, I guess. So that would have been, I don't even know when that was, to be honest with you, year wise. That's been several years ago now. But anyways, little pressure control company based out of, well, they were based out of Oklahoma. But I got the district manager job for them, and it was kind of funny. The president of the company's son was running that organization or that district when I got there. And I showed up at the shop my first day of work. He hands me a key to the door, a half of a call sheet. It says, "Best of luck." Leaves. So I had no clue where my guys were. No clue about anything. I didn't know where my equipment was. I didn't know how much equipment I had. I had no clue of anything. Just knew all the equipment in the shop looked really horrible. So we cleaned that up, and that little shop, we were doing about 13 million a month in the height of the boom out of a wee little bitty shop. Had about 13 crews running out of it. Just pressure control crews, and then I had I don't know, 15, 17 cranes running out of there. So that was my first management job, and I can't say I was good at it. I was good enough to keep the wheels on, right? I mean, I was young. I think I was only, I don't know, 22, 23, somewhere in that ballpark when that happened. Stuck it out with them. We had grown to the point, and I believe at one point we were like the second or third largest independently owned pressure control company in the U.S. Got promoted to vice president when I was 25, 26, somewhere in that ballpark. And again, that really wasn't so much skill on my behalf, I don't believe. I think that was more, I was good at turning numbers. I was the guy that didn't turn a job down. We'd figure out a way to cover it no matter what it took. That was just the oil field I grew up in. You never said no. You covered what you could do, even if that meant you had to strap back up and go cover a shift. You never turned down work. So did that for a little while, and then there's a lot in between here. So I don't know where.
No, we're going to pause there and kind of talk about some stuff. So I think, again, it goes back to, how many people, when you look at an organization, one of the things I always tried never to say and hated to hear is, that's not my job.
Yes, 100%.
And, it's like, we all have a job. We all have something in our position description, whatever that may be. But part of it is, if you want to keep only having to do what's in your position description, that company, that organization has to be successful.
100%.
And so if you're not willing, the owner's son saying, here's your, here's the key. Good luck.
Yeah.
Hope you have a great day, and going fishing or golfing or whatever he did from that point. That's just the difference of a work ethic that, and an attitude of, I'm going to do everything I can do to make this organization successful, in the hopes of that organization is going to see that and recognize that. And that's probably not even on the front side of it. That's just kind of somewhere down deeper inside you're like, I just know that if we fail, the company's going to go down, and I'm not going to, I like to eat. I like to have a nice place to sleep in. I like to drive a nice truck. It's like, if this all goes away, yeah, I might be able to get another job, but, then again, I might, I might not, because, like in that situation, you were set up somewhat to fail. And you could have, and if you did, it wouldn't be, you know, that tarnishes your reputation. That tarnishes your, um, marketability. So you have to be, and just listening to you talking, like, you're a pretty humble guy. You're like, well, I wasn't that great at it. I could just do, what, a lot of times, money, yeah, in the corporate world, money talks, right?
Absolutely.
And what else, it walks. But anyway, also, if you're not taking care of your people, um, you're not necessarily gonna, make money.
Yes.
Especially in a very blue collar world, a very, those guys once you've moved into the office, those hands out in the field, if they don't, they're getting paid. And
Mhm.
so if they're like, we can slow roll this guy. We don't have to bust our humps to get this job, so we can go to the next one that he's already got scheduled, and already told the company that we're drilling here, and already told the landowner we're going to be in here, and all the things that you're doing. And they could just say, hey, well, and you gotta, when you take care of your people, they want to work for you, and they want to work hard for you.
100%.
And so, you know, that is the mark of a good leader. So I'm gonna let you. I know you're trying to be humble. I know you are a humble guy, but that's just the truth of the matter. That
Well, and there was a lot of
men,
mistakes in that,
well,
though.
but
A whole lot. I mean,
but that's learning. I mean,
it is.
if that's the best, I mean, it's the most expensive way to learn, but it's also in some ways the best way to learn, because you only make some of those mistakes you only have to make once.
Yeah.
And sometimes you have to make them. Sometimes you make them a couple times, but the ones you learn from those, and you only make them once, and um, then you see the mistakes that go on that the other guys made, and you hopefully learn from them. So
Yeah. Well, and to me, all of my stuff, it was just more of the reputational damage, I think, that kept me motivated, right? I always had a chip on my shoulder, felt like I had something to prove to somebody else. Now, I will say, that vice president role was probably the worst thing that could have happened to me at that age. In 25, getting a promotion like that in a company of that scale, and a lot of the perks and things that came with it, my ego got drastically inflated. I know for a fact I made numerous management decisions because of my ego. So that was probably my largest scope. Lots of failures during that point in my life. Was always good at keeping the business on as far as revenue coming through the door, but I got to the point where, and it was to my demise a little bit, was cared more about the business and money than I did about some of the personnel and hands. And not that I didn't care about them. It was just, I grew up in the tougher part of the oil field. I expected you to behave the same, suck it up, buttercup, get back to work. You know what I mean? That was kind of how we ran. And I won't say lost sight of where I came from, but I guess that is some of that for a minute, right? And just being that young, I still look back at it and think I couldn't imagine promoting somebody to that level at that age myself now. I mean, not saying there wouldn't be a candidate worthy of it, but I don't see myself. It's weird to look back upon, I guess.
yeah, and I think when you're 25, or yeah, I mean, I'll be 53 here in about a month. So, your perspective on life is a lot different. And then you also, when you're that age, man, you're 10 foot tall and bulletproof. You recover quicker. Your body is just able to take more, stress and physical abuse. So, you can run pretty hard and pretty fast, and you don't necessarily see it, but some of your folks that were working for you were probably, you know, 40, 50 years old. Some of your drillers and stuff like that they had the experience, and they probably had a little bit of trouble, had a little heartburn to be that, about how you were doing it. But it's learning. You learn what, I think, as you go through life. The older you get, the you learn what truly self-care is. And it's not, hey, we're going to cut off early on Friday, and we're going to go to the bar, and we're going to drink until Sunday afternoon.
Yeah.
I mean, we've all been there and done that, but
Absolutely.
but it's, you kind of learn like, you know, it's, I'm going to take off and go hunting or fishing or take time with my family and go do something. And in one, I went to this conference I went to a conference last week, and it's a pretty smart guy. He wouldn't call himself a rocket scientist, but he's like one of 3 companies that builds reusable rocket boosters. And they're based here in Texas. He said, what you have to realize when you reach a certain level is that it's not really self-care. It actually, self-care is employee care. Because if you're not taking care of yourself and you're the business owner, or you're wherever you are up high in the company, and you go down, it just it's not just like when you're a hand out in the field. Yeah, you go down and it may impact 4 or 5 guys in your crew because somebody's got to work overtime, or somebody's got to stay late or whatever to finish the job. If you're the guy that's out there getting the next job for people, or making sure the company's running, and you go down, that puts everybody from you below in danger. So you have to look at that self-care as, it's really not self-care. Because a lot of times we, as men in general, but then as you get into these higher leadership roles, you feel so responsible. Like,
Agreed.
man, I can't take a week off to go unplug and, go to the mountains and go hunting, or go do whatever, go to Mexico, or whatever
Yep.
whatever refills you, whatever, charges you. You're like, I can't do that, because if I'm not there, well, not being there for a week is different than if, you have a heart attack or a stroke or some major physical problem because of stress and the things of not taking care of yourself, then your whole company's at risk. And so, that is a very important point, that as a leader, especially when you move into leadership positions, again, I don't think that a position defines leadership, but as you move up in a company and you're now responsible for more than just you, you got to take that time for self-care. You got to take the time for, and family care is self-care. Because if you got, we think we can separate, we think there's such a thing as work-life balance. There's not, because your work affects your family and your family affects your work. It's all tangled up in there in a big ball. And so if you're not taking care of your family, if you're not taking care of yourself, part of taking care of yourself is also that drive for continuous learning. How do I get smarter? Whether it's, we're in this age of AI, how do we get AI to help us? Some of this AI can't do the whole job, but can I use AI to, I talked to a guy last week that he has an AI receptionist.
Yeah.
And she answers, it sounds like a person, and answers his phone and takes messages. And when he needs to turn his phone off and do something else, so you have to learn those things. You have to learn the right way to do it. It's not just there's prompts to write and there's different things to do. So, that's continuous learning. How can I do these repetitive, mundane tasks, if you will? How can I do that? And it's all about learning. And, you're probably learning, with this, crane and heavy haul, division. I mean, sounds like you worked around cranes and hauling a long time, but now being solely focused on that part of the business, you probably are learning some stuff.
I am, as far as, technical, there's not lots changed in the technicality of it. The sales cycle of going to, out of my norm. I'm used to dealing with oil and gas companies. And so I have a network there. So stepping outside of that network into the unknown and focusing on sales efforts when your name or reputation doesn't precede you has been a little bit different. It's been, I tell my wife all the time, it's like people who haven't done sales don't understand the emotional roller coaster, the highest of highs and the lowest of lows, and sometimes all within 10 minutes of each other. And you're correct. And back to your other point there a second ago too, is I kind of wish somebody would have told me about some of that self-care and self-help younger. Burnout is a real thing, and sometimes it takes years to recover from. That industry being 24/7, 365, we shut down for nothing.
Excuse me.
I can remember when it finally hit me, I after about 3 years, I'd taken a beach vacation, and I was literally standing in the ocean in swimming trunks with my pager on my side, and that was when they first came out with those life-proof cases, the waterproof ones, and I'm on the phone while I'm standing in the water the whole time. I mean, I didn't know how to disconnect, and still to some ways, that's what I struggle with the most is I am the most comfortable, I guess, just coming from that industry when it's chaos. I find comfort in chaos, as weird as that sounds.
No,
And the finding home and work-life balance. And I have gotten much, much better with that, but it's still become it's been an issue that I've struggled with. It's kind of hard to find a way to calm down, I guess. And you're right. AI and a few things have helped too, I mean, but those are tools. And I think a lot of people try to use them just to build your business. And it does. I mean, there's models that works for, but not in the standard industry.
Things it can do. It can, you can use, if we're talking about AI, you can use it in sales to generate leads.
Yep.
You can use it to build some of your literature and things like that you're not having to necessarily spend. Now you're just in the editing phase. It does all the,
Yes.
but it's also it's a computer.
Yep.
That's what people forget. It may be a smart computer. It is artificial intelligence. It's not.
Yes.
So you have to, that's the old way. I remember when computers first came out, the was garbage in, garbage out. So
100%.
if you don't give it good parameters, you don't give it good data, you're not going to get a good product. And that's just, it's still the same.
Yep,
It's just gotten slicker. It's gotten better. It's packaged prettier. But if you're not, you have to, and I'm just learning things myself, but you have to write prompts, and you have to tell it the tone you want. You have to tell it the audience you're looking for, and you have to tell it all these things. Because if you just put in write an email, a sales email, it is not gonna, not gonna do it, and so that's a big thing. And I think, I was in the military for a lot of years, and my thing was I've learned to get better, but my life was, I was always able to keep a very calm head in chaos.
Yeah.
And that's where I was the best. So
100%.
for a while, I lived my life in ways to, kind of self-sabotage. So there was always some kind of chaos, because that's just where I felt
comfortable.
That was where I was the best,
Yes.
because I could come into a chaotic situation and typically de-escalate it. And
Yes.
so I would look for chaotic situations to get myself into so I could de-escalate it, because that's where I felt I was the most successful or the most useful in life. And,
Feel the same in a lot of ways.
and so I will say for me, a lot of it has been, and it's changed because, I'm getting better. Like with you've helped us with the chuck wagon at church. Before it was kind of everything was in my head, and I knew the plan, but I necessarily didn't communicate it real well. And so it would get chaotic, and we've gotten better at it. We've gotten better, a little more structure, which is difficult for me because I do thrive in chaos. And then for me, cooking is a creative outlet.
Agree.
I don't use recipes. That's why I don't bake. I cook.
Yeah.
Because I'm going to say, oh, well, we're going to put a little of this in, and we're going to do a little of that, and we're going to do, and that's when you're doing that, especially when you're trying to compete and you have a team helping you, it can't be like, well, what do we, how do we do these? And I'm like, well, you just serve some of this and that, and it comes out. And they're like, oh, how much of this and that? I'm like, oh, I don't,
Yeah.
I don't know. And so you have to learn that when you move from a hand to a leader, that you have to be able to pass those things on. You can't just keep everything in your head. So you have to maybe not develop for me, maybe not develop a recipe, but I can at least explain the process of, okay, this is what we're looking for as an end product. I'm results, not process. That's just how I've always
Same.
been. I don't,
Same.
if nobody gets hurt, if it's legal, ethical, moral, however you want to look at it, I don't care how you do it, just do it.
Yeah.
Just get it done. Not at all costs, because I think there are some hard stops, but I don't
And that's
care.
always open to interpretation, depending.
Well, yeah,
know?
there's that too. But I mean, I think, the big thing is I don't care where you start, what order you go in. Just at the end of the day, if I say I need whatever at the end of the day, whatever that may be at this time, that is there at that time.
Yeah.
And how you got to that, I don't care.
Yeah.
Because that's you. That's on the person that, I think it was Steve Jobs said, hiring smart people and then telling them what to do is not very smart.
100%.
You hire somebody or you bring somebody onto your team based on their capabilities. And if you're a good leader, you try to find people that have the skills that where you're weaker or your gaps. So
100%.
if you're weak in something and then you bring somebody in that's strong in that, why are you telling them how to do something you're weak in?
Exactly.
There's nothing wrong with learning from a subordinate. There's nothing wrong with learning from a peer.
Yep. Well, iron sharpens iron no matter where you're at on the spectrum. And even like this heavy hauling crane thing I'm going on, I haven't had to, I guess a lot of that I've been sheltered from. I was very fortunate. Got my first hire done here just a little while back. And I mean, he's been doing this every day for 40 years. So he's almost been a consultant to me in some regards, even though he's initially just going to fill the seat of a tractor trailer. So I'm a firm believer in that. That's where I've started to grow from. I used to try to capitalize on every bit of revenue that you could. And when you start doing that, you can't scale that. The wheels come off of it at some point. So I've learned to, try to slow roll, hire the correct people, keep them between the guardrails, set your boundaries and don't let anybody cross those boundaries. And if they do, there's repercussions. But as long as they're staying within that framework, let them do their job. That's what you hired them for, and sometimes you get some really creative outlets from people if you will allow them. I mean, I've seen people, even back when I was in the pressure control world, guys, if you just let them do their job, they would come up with some neat little trinkets that they'd put on a trailer or whatever the case may be, that the next thing you know becomes an SOP for all the trailers or whatever the case may be, just because those guys, bought in, cared for the job. And no, I agree 1,000% with you.
Well, I mean, they say necessity is the mother of invention. So, the guys that are out there doing the job every day, they know what they need. And they're like, man, how many times have you been doing something and you're like, I wish there was this tool that did this, that had, whatever that may be. And those guys that, those blue collar guys, farmers, ranchers, we use my buddy Rowdy's song, Blue Collar is our intro and extra music. And there's a line in there. It's, they're the zip tie, duct tape and baling wire holding this world together. And
100%.
That's the truth about them people is, and that rolls over into the white collar world. That rolls over into service industries or medical field or whatever it may be. If you let your people if you give them the room to run, and say they know what works and what doesn't, and as long as and sometimes that's the hard part, because I know oil and gas is probably very much the same, but medical field is hugely regulated.
Yes.
And so it's like, well, we can't, this is the best way to do it. Nobody just has ever tried it, but we can't do it because it's against the law. It's against policy or regulation, whatever that may be. And if it's your policy, if it's just a company policy, you're like, hey, we're going to do my job is to keep this is the road we're on. This is the map we're on. I'm going to keep them between I want to keep them between the guardrails, but sometimes, you see it all the time here in Texas, driving down the road and there's a there's a traffic jam, and we have service roads, frontage roads, whatever you want to call them here, pretty much run parallel to your highways, and you'll see somebody that, man, they go across that grassy median and get off on that, get off on that frontage road and go, that's okay. If there's a good reason and it was like, hey, this was a better route for us to do it this way. And I know, boss, this is our policy and this is how we do it. But in this situation, this was the better route. And,
well, regulation gets to, in my opinion, so many rules, policies, procedures are written because people need to justify their positions in a white collar role. And we have, in my opinion, we have lost touch with the fact that without blue collar work, there is zero white collar jobs.
True.
I mean, and that goes to every scale. Just the bottom line of it. I could elaborate.
You can. Hey, if it wasn't for guys in oil and gas, we wouldn't be driving down the road. Wouldn't have a road to drive on. Half the clothes we're wearing, we wouldn't be wearing.
Yeah.
If it wasn't for farmers and ranchers, we'd have nothing to eat.
Absolutely.
If it wasn't for guys in steel mills, we wouldn't have it just goes to it. But I think also a lot of times regulations are built out of also fear. One person screwed up, or we're so scared of things that we go, and then we blindly adhere to them. We look at them at face value. We don't ever try to figure out intent. We're like, well, that's the rules. The rules are rules. And that's not a good way to lead. Again, we don't want people doing things that's illegal, unsafe, going to get somebody hurt. All these things. But if you got a guy that's been driving a semi and working in the heavy haul field for 40 years, he knows the tricks of the trade. He knows
Absolutely.
the ways to do things that are safe, that may not necessarily be the face value of a law or regulation. And I'm not encouraging people to just, be negligent and break laws, but I'm saying we need to, when you're building a company and you're a leader, you need to look at those things that are holding your team back and the why. And if they come up to you and say, doing it this way isn't the most efficient way to do it. Because and efficiency is also the most efficient way does not necessarily mean it's also the easiest way
or the safest.
So you know what I'm saying? I mean, you can say, if they just come up and say, I don't want to do it this way because it's too hard. That's one thing. But if they say, this is not the most efficient way to do it, we can do it like this. We can be safe. We can do it better. And it's an internal policy. That's something that we have to really, as leaders, go, hey, I don't necessarily don't tie ourselves to our policies or to our regulations. Don't say, well, I came up with this and this is the way I've done it. This is the way we've always done it. Whatever however you want to say it, be open to that. That's a great thing. Be open, let them, it's also coming up with kind of another tenet of mine. And you do see it a lot and a lot more from, like I said, we talked being about blue collar folks and they don't come to you with a problem 99% of the time without having the solution to that problem
100%
right along with you and right along with it. So it's one thing to say, oh, this sucks. I don't want to do it, whatever. But if they say this doesn't work, here's why, and here's how we can do it better. As a leader, you really have to have that, that continuous learning piece of it to say, well, let's look at that. And maybe it is better, but maybe it's only better for John, because that's the way he does it. And everybody else kind of needs to do it this way. Being fair doesn't mean you treat everybody exactly the same.
Yeah.
Being that's not necessarily, it's, things like pay and leave and those kind of administration things. Yeah. Everybody should have the same, everybody generally should be treated the same but when you look at, how people do things. If somebody can do it a better way, and maybe you let just them do it that better way because the other people don't have the skill set to do it. You have to look at your people and say, be honest in your assessment of them. Be honest in the assessment of yourself is like, you don't have the skills to do it that way yet.
Yeah.
So maybe you go hang out with John and you figure out how John does it and you have him show you on your time. If you want to learn how to do it better, if that's an easier way, then, come in on your day off and get with him or
Yeah.
get with him after work or whatever, and if it's that great of a policy, then maybe you say, hey, we're going to do, John, you're now a trainer. So
Yeah.
you're going to teach everybody here how to do this. And it's that flexibility.
And getting to know your people too, and putting people in positions where they're gifted at, right? So I had a gentleman work for me who frankly other management didn't think that he was going to make the cut, honestly, because he didn't read and write well. And in our day and age, we have so much safety paperwork and job site reviews and different things. It's kind of hard to perform those tasks without being able to. But the gentleman you could blindfold him and he could rebuild a diesel engine. So we just made him roles, took him out of the field, put him as a mechanic, never had a single other issue. Best position for the job. So I think a lot of times it's learning your individuals and where their strengths and weaknesses are, helping them grow. And what you brought up earlier, the guys that always want to do something different, a lot of times, sometimes it's not a policy change that even needs made, is a re-education, as a management part. Like in my world, we don't make very many policies, and the ones that we do make are written in blood. So don't get me wrong, there's some very mundane stuff that we could argue for days, but the key componentry, sometimes we need to explain that, because I have noticed that my generation and the generations before me that came in this industry, we were really good at kind of engineering problems out and finding ways to mitigate them, but we weren't really good at training the next generation why we did such things. So now some of this generation has a falsehood of how safe things are out there and don't realize the dangers that they're surrounded by. So some of that has been, I know myself personally, I've had to do a lot of re-education on things. And especially as, we went to a cleaner, greener oil field, and, even on a frac job now, we're running these electric pumps and it's quiet. Used to, you knew stuff was energized because you had, 16 diesel engines screaming. It's just changed a lot. And I think that we all need to work on passing that knowledge transfer along to the next generation as well. Myself personally, I would be nowhere in my career if it wasn't for a bunch of those old guys taking a chance on a young kid and passing along a lot of that knowledge that got me where I'm at, I guess.
Yeah. There's which is fine. We're throwing around.
Yeah, I'm bouncing all over the place.
No, we're throwing around a lot of cliches too, but there's some truth to them. So that's kind of, knowledge but I'm also trying to kind of turn them on their ear a little bit too. Knowledge is power.
Yes.
But if you're the only one holding the knowledge, that is not power, because while you might be the go-to guy, or girl, that's great. But again, what if you go down? What happens if you do learn how to turn off your phone for 5 minutes and something happens and you're the only one that knows that?
Yep.
If you're the only one that knows that, you're not, especially as a leader.
Yep.
I can say, well, if I'm a hand and I'm trying to work my way up, then I need to make myself valuable. I still don't know about that, but I could maybe understand it. But if you're a leader and you're the only one that knows how to do something, in the military, you train your people 2 down and you train 1 up. So, the 2 ranks below you know your job and you know the job of at least the man above you. And that's important. And I think that's important. Oh, Shadow, you're not going to catch the vultures, buddy. But thank you for being a special guest on the show. But so that's important. And then, so let's kind of switch. Well, we're not, like I said, we're bouncing around. That's the best conversations because they don't get boring. So another thing, like I said, I was at this conference and there's a Skylar Williams. He's a West Point grad. He played baseball for the Detroit Tigers. He was an Army Ranger deployed to Iraq.
Mm-hmm.
Now he's a Williams Real Estate, which is one of the bigger commercial real estate companies here in Texas. So he wrote a book called The Steady Leader. He shows he has a picture of a stool, and he says, you need to have uh, the more legs on a stool, the more steady. The steadier it is, the more stable it is. And so he says, you have to have your mental health, you have to have your physical health. Those are two separate legs. And then he has um, on his illustration that he used, and I liked it a lot. He has a four-legged stool, and his third and fourth legs are both your spiritual health. Whatever, I know you and I know each other from Parker County Cowboy Church, and
Yes, sir.
and it, of course, we believe that we believe in God and Jesus, and but we also believe that's probably the best route for spiritual health, but you have to believe in something concrete and bigger than you.
100%.
And so that's very important, that you're doing those things that kind of give you a sense of where you are in the universe. Because if, you had a very fast rise, and, at 25, you're a vice president, and, you've moved up from there. So you could, um, very easily, be get that, kind of that false sense of, you're the master of the universe, or you're, I
100%. And that's still a lot of the regret that I live with today, truly, from that. I mean, when I feel like when you don't focus on God, your ego becomes your God, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
That's, you get in your head, you think you become, I guess the term today everybody would use is almost narcissistic a little bit. Your ego gets completely out of control. I'm not going to lie and say mine didn't. I mean, 100%. My career was a rocket ship, but a lot of regrets from those years. Truly.
Yeah. One of the guys that was talking last week, I can't remember who he was, but he said, kind of lessons learned from a successful entrepreneur is you have to be your biggest fan. You have to be your own fan, but you can't be your own God.
Yeah.
And I think that's a great thing to remember. You need to encourage yourself. Uh, Clint Bruce was the other guy, and he said, if somebody talked to me the way I talk to myself sometimes, I'd punch him square in the mouth.
100%.
And so you have to remember that if you can hold yourself accountable, you can be tough on yourself, but if you're not your own fan, if you're not encouraging yourself, you may have a great support system around you, and you may have people telling you, people that really, not that are just blowing smoke, people that really truly care about you and care, and love you, and that you trust, and the whole, that have that right to talk into your life. They can be telling you you're doing a great job, but if you don't believe them, and you're not telling yourself the same thing, hey, I made mistakes. Yeah, maybe this new division of the business isn't as growing as fast as I thought it would. But that doesn't mean that I'm, a loser or a failure or whatever those things may be. You have to be, if you got to think about that. If you talk to yourself, or if somebody, if somebody talked to your wife or your kids or a family member, the way you talk to yourself, there's days, and you get better at it. But there's days that you get you're tough on yourself, and things are just tough. Life isn't, life isn't rainbows, Skittles, and unicorns. But there's days that I think, if somebody talked to somebody I loved the way I'm talking, that I'm thinking about what I'm doing, I would stomp them. It would not be it wouldn't even be a thought. So why am I talking to myself that way? I guess that goes back to self-care but that's another piece of it. It's spiritually knowing that, you know, we are, if you believe in God and you have a relationship with Jesus, that, we are kings and royal priests.
Yes.
And we have to look at ourselves that way some days because, some days the world ain't going to look at us that way, and so we have to, I don't know if that's fake it till you make it or however you want to look at it, but some days you got to tell yourself, you're doing a great job and, uh, keep at it. So,
Yeah. No, I agree. I I guess as I've got closer in my faith, I feel like coincidence doesn't exist anymore. Um, it's kind of comical, and not that there's anything wrong with the state. It was just I'm a mountains guy. I used to swear I'd never wanted kids, and there was no way I'd live in Texas, and both are here, right? When I look back in hindsight, the good Lord has given me every single thing that I have ever asked for. Maybe not on my timeline, but has given me everything. Now, a lot of those were things that I thought that I wanted that ended up being life lessons. Um, but yes, long story short, I agree. You have to keep yourself grounded in the faith. I would prefer that everybody on this earth be a Christian and a follower of Christ. But I think regardless of where you walk, you need to ground yourself in something higher than yourself. But like I say, it's just wild. Just watching the Lord work a lot of times.
yeah, yeah.
It truly is.
This last year, yeah, not even well, yeah, last year, but really since about May through now has just been for me, it's just been so many things that, if it was very clear that where I'm going with this Evan's leadership insight group, with the podcast, with just kind of some career changes, some life changes, that there's no doubt that that's where I was supposed to be. And, even when it didn't look like things were going the way that, man, I was like, God, I thought this is what you told me you wanted to do. And it was looking bleak, but I'm like, you know what? I'm going to stay the course. This is where you told me to go. This is the road you told me to walk. You told me that, you showed me that if you're doing something, um, and you're expecting God to tell you exactly how it's going to play out, that's not faith.
Yeah.
And so, I'm like, I'm gonna keep the faith. I'm gonna keep doing it. And something, and it went the way he said it was gonna go. And I was like,
Yeah.
it wasn't a coincidence. And it's like, well, I caught myself thinking one day, praying. I was like, well, God, if you can, and I was like, wait a second. Why am I saying if you can? I know you can. I know this is where you told me to go, and this is how I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it. May not, and if it didn't, if it doesn't work out exactly as I thought it was going to work out, that doesn't mean it wasn't, it doesn't mean that it's not what I'm supposed to do. It's just, I'm supposed to lean more into faith and keep walking that way. So,
It's
so
good.
speaking of faith and that, don't want to cut you short. So if you have something,
No, you're fine.
so what brought, other than starting a new company? So
Mhm.
you grew up back in the Midwest, north of Great Lakes, Ohio Valley, I believe is the area they call it these days. So you grew up back there. So what brought you to Texas? What took you to bring that leap of faith to leave where you've, pretty much spent your entire life? I'm going someplace where I don't know anybody. I'm going to start this new company, all the things. So
It's a pretty complex answer, I guess. A multitude of things. Now, I will caveat this by saying this is my perception. Okay. Um, Home back in West Virginia is just it's not the home that I grew up in. I grew up a bunch of blue collar, hardworking people. The drug epidemic has just ravaged our state. I mean, it's horrible. I wanted more for my kids. I got to the point where I honest to goodness, I don't know one family from home that hasn't been affected by the drug epidemic in some fashion. Whether that be a cousin, a niece, nephew, whatever, but I don't know one family. I I would say probably 50% of my graduating class is dead. Um, anyway, I didn't want my daughters being raised in that. Uh, so had contemplated moving for years. A good friend of mine lives up in Wichita Falls, and he'd been trying to beg me to come to Texas for years. And man, the wife and I just prayed about it, and I made a promise to the good Lord above that I would, if He would straighten me out. I kind of got in a weird funk business wise for a minute. Like through COVID, my management and my guys were basically able. I used to be heavily involved in my business and everyday day-to-day operations. And through COVID, my wife was pregnant, so I'd kind of taken a step back from day-to-day ops, and my guys really didn't miss a beat. They kept on going without me. So I kind of got in a weird space in my head and a weird mental space for some time that took some shake because, I'd spent, 5-6 years building all that up, and then they didn't even need me anymore, which I should have looked at that with,
It's a gift.
As the gift that it was, but instead
I'm gonna just for a second.
Yes, sir.
So, and then I don't want to, but that is something as a leader that we also have to remember is our goal should be to make ourselves obsolete or redundant.
Yes.
We should train our people so well. We should give them the tools that they need, that they don't need us.
Yes.
And that's not a bad thing. I mean, that's what you do as a parent, right?
Yeah.
You want to treat your kids, you want to teach your kids to be able to do it without you. And hopefully, the ultimate goal is to be able to do it better without you.
Yes.
And so, it's a little bit different when you're building your own business, but if you're working for somebody else, if you want to move forward, and not even so, because that's kind of, I think, what you got, and then I'm going to let you go back here, is you wouldn't be here if you weren't redundant there.
Yes.
You wouldn't have been able to leave
100%
to come here. So if you want to grow, that goes back to knowledge is power. You need to transfer that knowledge to your people so that company, whether it's your own company, whether it's you're working for somebody else, so that company can grow and you can also grow. You can grow into new positions, because if you're irreplaceable, they're not going to let you be replaced, and that's not going to allow you to grow. So I'm sorry to.
But. Yeah, no. And it truly was a gift. And I don't want to ever sound that I was unappreciative of it. It was, I guess it's what a lot of people go through when they hit retirement. You don't feel like you have a purpose, I guess, anymore. So the guys were running every day. I was essentially a secretary for my management group, you may as well say, right? Just making sure they had what they needed, dotting I's, crossing T's in our compliance software, that type of stuff. But nonetheless, I got in a little mental funk in my head. I had backslidden. I walked away from church for several years. And I made a promise to God that if he got me out of that situation, got the family out, that I was going to do it right and walk His way this time. And truthfully, the rest of it was just stars and moon aligning and getting out of His way. I had done some business with an oil and gas guy down here at Granbury about 8 years ago, and really liked that area. So when the wife and I, were thinking about Texas, I had to come down here for a business trip anyway. I decided to look for some homes and stuff around Granbury, and it just wasn't the same. It had grown so much until last I'd seen it. And we wanted to rent for the first year or so, just to make sure that she was going to be happy here and things before we tried buying a place. And she picked out a house. Of course, you're pretty limited with the space that we need and having dogs and everything under the sun, right? And so we ended up here in Parker County, and just watching God work. I mean, the house was taken that we wanted. It came off the market right as we were getting ready to close. The stories could go on, but I mean, I visually watched God open up tons of doors. I was fortunate enough to find the Parker County Cowboy Church, and that was just happenstance. Watching some YouTube videos and things online, and had ran into Joe, and through that, I've met some great men, yourself included. A lot of the elders of the church have been very welcoming and very sharp and helping sharpen me. I can feel God at work here, and you're right. There's days I definitely get down on myself as far as, business should be going faster here, but it's all coming together. So, but that's kind of how we ended up in Texas. It was just, I really, I just wanted the better life for the kids, and I needed to get out of there. I mean, so I ran away from that for a lot of years there. Like, I owned a home in West Virginia that I probably slept in 10 days a year. All throughout my 20s and into my early 30s, I was just go, work, work, work. That's all I ever knew. So, I always called it home, but I was never there. And then when I, settled down with Liz and we had the kids and the whole nine, it just kind of reignited some stuff from the childhood that I just didn't really want to be there, I guess, and found a home here for now.
Yeah. I mean, so I grew, we've talked, I grew up in Northeast Ohio. So we're probably where I grew up is probably 3 hours, maybe 4 from where you grew up.
Yeah.
And I know and I don't, and then where, where we have some property is down there, you know, real close to West Virginia. It's in coal country, and up until, really the last, 2-3 years, really, there was some oil and gas, but that was all coal country, coal mining.
Mhm.
All the mines were coal closed. There was no strip mining. They've come back in, and like I know the property that adjoins ours, they're back in there stripping number 8 coal. They're I think we're putting 12 wells on my dad's place. Pipelines going in, so it's turning back around. But for so long, yeah, it was it was Appalachia, and it was meth and
100%.
marijuana. Before Ohio legalized marijuana, and I know that they had found a couple of there's some state property that surrounds us. They had found a couple of out hunting. They'd found a couple of illegal marijuana grow sites, and kind of the old Copperhead Road
Yep.
situation. And then the last time I was home and went to the house in Canton where I grew up, went to the next town over, and when you drive in at the city limits sign, there's a big sign next to the Massillon, Ohio population, whatever, and it said it was like it was like a safety, it was like one of your safety boards, this many days without an accident, or this many days without an injury, or this many doses and this many deaths from overdoses in the last 12 months. And it's like that that a town trying to bring awareness to that has that's something that they put right at the city limit sign, and they were, we're talking not a small town, but we're not talking a major, we're not talking Cleveland or Columbus or Charleston or or Dallas Fort Worth area. We're talking small cities, big towns, whatever you want to look at it, but they weren't huge population centers. And there was hundreds of overdose deaths, and hundreds of thousands of overdoses that they had in the course of 12 months. And it's just like that of course you were in the more coal country. We were definitely in the Rust Belt, and so to see that turn around is great. But I wouldn't, Texas is I've been here since 2006, so almost 20 years. I won't, Ohio's where I grew up. I got family back there, but Texas is my home.
Yeah.
Because I wouldn't want to live in that atmosphere, and frankly, I wouldn't want to raise kids back there. So,
No, and that's where we were. I mean, it's sad to think about, just how far the state's changed. I mean, and I don't know these stats to still be correct, but at one point, West Virginia is essentially the lowest population in the United States and the highest drug overdose rate in the United States.
it's crazy.
And it's just horrible, man. There's a multitude of reasons for that. It started with opioids, but in '08, when the Obama administration came in and basically shut down all of those coal mines, I mean, it just decimated the state. I went down to southern West Virginia, I don't know, say 5 years ago, and I hadn't been there in probably 10, since we used to do a bunch of old coal bed methane wells down that way. I mean, there was areas that were so struck by that Walmart pulled out. I mean, you had small towns where their only source of anything really was the local gas station, convenience slash grocery store, and that was it. There's nothing. And I mean, you, you can't help but feel bad for a lot of those folks. And in some ways, you understand the drug epidemic. I
Well, if
guess
they're
sure it has tons to do with depression and being trapped in an area that you can't get out of, and no jobs and no anything, and selling pills or making meth is the way that they make money. And I don't justify that. I don't want to,
no,
but I can kind of understand the thinking, I
no.
guess, behind some of
And
it.
it goes back to what we were talking about just a few minutes ago too, or just, is if you don't have that spiritual leg of your of your stool,
Yep.
of your seat, if you don't have that, if your mental health and your physical health go, and you don't have anything that you can, um anything else to help you balance, um you know it's it's tough. And when you're in very rural areas and there's no farming, I mean, that's hard country to farm.
Yeah.
you know
There's not a flat piece there, hardly.
so that's, it's hard country to farm. um Plus, I mean, even in economically, you know depressed areas, land's not land in a land may be cheap, but equipment, I mean,
Absolutely.
to get a tractor's $70,000 these days. And so, to get the equipment, it's hard to farm. And there's just not a whole lot of options. And,
Yeah.
so you either go outside the law and find a way to take care of your family, and, or you find whether it's a bottle, a pill, whatever, you find
Find an
a
outlet.
way to numb the pain. So, that
Yeah.
is, that's tough. And so let's let's put aside the depressing
Right.
talk here. So so what's next with for Atlas Daveco? What's
So we are currently setting up, like I say, the heavy haul division I'm putting first. I have that. We should be, good Lord willing, another 10 days should be fully operational in that. I got a facility secured this past week.
Awesome.
Got a driver hired, in the process of purchasing equipment and everything now, getting some things moving, getting some hauler agreements done if I can ever get some of these insurance companies to quit redlining and passing things back and forth. But that's where we're at. Just trying to grow and expand it. And then see what the good Lord has in store for us next. I like to capitalize on any new opportunity that presents itself, but that's kind of where we are right now. Just in the building process here, standing up this other division. Do plan on growing our crane services division, especially in the Northeast. Would also like to capitalize on something down here. But that's kind of the track we're on right now, anyway. So
Okay.
whatever the good Lord lays in front of me, that's where I'm at. I'm just trying to follow in His footsteps at this point.
Well,
I've kind of learned I'm just a pawn on a chessboard, So.
I think we're a little more than pawns, but I know what you're saying. You just there's that rough and narrow road that you got to follow, and
Yep.
some days it's not easy, and you know, uh, some days it's just a struggle to keep out of the bar ditch. But you know, but
You
that's what
know,
he's there for. Even if you get in the bar ditch, he's going to pull you back out and pick you up, dust you off, and um, put you forward. And in business, the economy's doing good, and maybe we'll get through this silliness that's going on in Washington, get the government back open, which doesn't necessarily do a lot, but it probably, for somebody just starting a business, and we're both kind of in that. You're way further down the road and starting a business than I am. I'm just in the launch phase. But it's kind of tough when you're just starting out, and some of these agencies that you need to use to get your business started, to get registered, to generate leads and be a part of our
dang.
either closed or reduce staffing, and it takes longer. So, not that, again, we'll get through it, and good Lord willing, and the creek don't rise. But it's just, I'm sure that the as the economy continues to grow, and down here, when you look at Fort Worth, and
It's astounding to me how much this area has grown.
go from here right now, go from here east, all the way across to Dallas, and they're building. So I'm sure that, hopefully when UT West starts building, maybe they need some cranes, and you can
Absolutely.
get yourself in there. And
Yeah, and that's kind of what we've been doing. I've been using, trying to leverage my oil and gas connections to basically get the crane division stood up, as well as some of the heavy haul, and then diversifying into construction and things from there.
yeah,
So the heavy haul's been a much easier path. That's why I decided to go ahead and shift focus. We were putting cranes out, but master service agreements with a lot of these oil and gas companies and things, they just take so much time to get done, and I needed to get some revenue coming through. And a lot of people would ask me about, doing the heavy haul stuff, since we were going to be in the crane business anyway. So it just kind of, I guess, path of least resistance, easiest way to revenue. Already got some customers lined up, employees hired, trucks in purchase. So that's what we're going to capitalize on right now. And then as get this up off the ground, try to stand back up the crane division. So
okay,
they have some pretty neat tech. We got a new 100% fully electric crane. I'm pretty excited to try to get out. So it's kind of interesting. I have to show you some pictures here after a bit offline. It's pretty interesting.
definitely.
So
All right, so somebody's looking for. Hey, we are famous. We have like hundreds of views on YouTube and Spotify. So if somebody runs across this and they're looking to get a hold of you for heavy haul or for crane, how do they do that?
all my information is on our website, which is just www.atlasdavco.com. And then just fill out. There's a form on there, or pick up the phone, give us a call. I'd love to hear from anybody.
All right.
So
Yeah, we appreciate your time, and
absolutely, pleasure
great
being here.
conversation. Guys, if you're looking for cranes or heavy haul, get a hold of Tom. If you're looking for some leadership training, you can reach out to Evan's Leadership Insight Group at Gmail, and that's the best way to contact me. Or you can find me on LinkedIn, and we can talk some business. But if you don't have anything else, I think we'll say it's been a great conversation. Thank you, brother.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Thank you very much.
All right. Thank everybody for tuning in today. Thanks to Kellyanne Cardwell with Cardwell Creative for being our technical expert. If you need, you're on Instagram and Facebook, Kellyanne. So look up look up Cardwell Creative on those two sites, and reach out to her if you need media consulting or expertise. And we thank everybody. We again thank Rowdy Decker for letting us use Blue Collar as our intro and outro. And you can find him at Rowdy Decker Music. You can also find him on Facebook. Go find him for our show. So thanks everybody again, and have a great weekend.
Thanks, everyone.
Zip ties, duct tape, and